How unfair is that to my wife and my kids for me to give all my emotional bandwidth every single day to business and then just give them my physical presence and not the best version of me that I would give clients and team members or the gym or somebody else?
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Life by the Horns. There's a version of success a lot of ambitious men secretly chase. Build the business, make more money, create freedom, give the family a better life. And on paper, it sounds great. But sometimes, while the business is growing, the marriage is quietly starving. Not through cheating, not through screaming and arguing, just slow disconnection. Less conversation, less patience, less presence, and less emotional connection. Two people are still functioning, they're still parenting, they're still handling life, but slowly they're becoming strangers. And I think a lot of ambitious men don't notice what's happening in real time because work gives them something relationships often don't: control, progress, and validation. So Dustin, I want to start here. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I can't complain. So my first question for you is, what do ambitious men think success is going to solve for them personally, in your opinion?
I think big picture, it's a sense of personal satisfaction. A lot of times they're trying to prove something, whether it be to family, friends, themselves, more than anything. Look, I did it. Mm-hmm. I think ultimately what they're really looking for, they don't say it very well, is a sense of safety and security for themselves. Because a lot of times they were lacking that early on in life. And I think the thought is, or I know the thought is, if I accomplish this version of success, which generally has dollars and cents behind it, then I've made it. The reality is most people, when they finally check that box or get to the top of the mountain, they realize this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Where do you think that belief comes from?
I think the belief comes from because we live in like a super binary society. You're either for something or against something. You've either attained something or you haven't. When you're seeking this idea of success or safety, I think the thought is, for so many, when you didn't have it early on as a child or as a young man or a young woman, if I do this thing for myself, then I'll finally feel this way. So at the highest level, I believe that's where it comes from, again, because we're super binary. If I didn't have it before, if I grew up poor and in a trailer, and now I have this idea of abundance, then I'll feel better, then I'll feel like I've made it.
Do you think men think that success will eventually lead to peace?
No.
No,
I think that they believe that it will finally give them what they're looking for. But I have seen this in myself and so many others, that what ends up happening is men's identity gets so deeply rooted in the doing and in performance that when they finally get to the place where they no longer have to do anymore, their mind and everything they've ever subscribed to being would have to shift to really feel that peace. Most can't stop. I know so many super successful entrepreneurs that could never work a day in their life again in their 30s and 40s, yet the first thing they choose to do every single day is continue to work, not go on the vacations, not spend real time with their family and wives, because they've wired themselves for this consistent pursuit of success.
You mentioned just the idea, the husband side of it, or even just as a father. Do you think people, or men in particular, tie their value as a husband and father to their ability to provide?
100%. I mean, whether it be innate and in our physiology or whatever you want, our biology, that we're here to protect and provide. I know even in my own life, there's been so many times that I was providing materially, but not in so many other aspects. And I think some of the biggest fights my wife and I have ever gotten in are in alignment with that. We as providers, and for, women as well, absolutely. As providers, sometimes, our thought is, we've got the roof over their head. We're giving you the things you need. You have the nice car. You've got the Amex. You can do whatever you want. And sometimes they just say, well, I want more of you. And you're like, well, if you have more of me, then we can't have all of this. And they say, I don't want all of this. And then in your head, we try to justify it. And, for me, it was using humor. Oh, you don't want the nice car. You don't want the thing. Sure. And then my amazing wife has to remind me that some of my best memories were when we were broke. When we had a car with no AC, when we had to go to Coinstar to get groceries, when we didn't have all these things. And for so many of us as entrepreneurs, we live and die by P&Ls and scorecards and KPIs. And that's something that's harder to see in black and white in marriage.
Yeah. It's like we're sacrificing presence in the name of providing. Like we're not there. And then, so what do you think, you elaborate, like for you, have you ever personally had a season where work got so much of your mental energy that home just kind of got the leftovers?
Yeah, for 10 years at least of my life.
Well, what changed that for you? Like, what was the moment for you?
Well, I'll back up first. So because I was such a perfectionist, for lack of a better term, by default, because I lived and died on this idea of, what am I doing now? Or what am I doing next? Not what did I do? It was a constant pursuit of more for egocentric status, to get other people's approval and everything else. And that led to a shallow relationship at that time with my wife, for lack of a better term. And honestly, and I hate that people have to go through this, but a good friend of mine, Jake, mentioned this. Most people don't change until you're confronted with one of the 3 Ds, which is death, disease, or divorce. And then one of them you don't come back from. And then for me, it was, confrontation of 2 of those things at once. And I realized that, although I may say the right things, I'm not actually prioritizing the most important things. Because we all know at the end of the day, like you may be the one contributor in your business, whether it be the business owner, the team member, that is a fucking A player and everybody needs you. But if you die tomorrow, people will figure it out, which is kind of sad at the end of the day, because we don't act like that. We act like this is just some infinite game that we're playing, and it's not. And then, so for me, it was, if I really want to subscribe to this idea that I'm not building a business that I'm shackled to, I'm building a business that helps build the life that I want, I have to do things very differently. And for years, I had some great boundaries around when I was at work, I was at work. When I was at home, I was at home. But it was to an extent. And then it wasn't until I actually started pouring into my kids, because I had to think of my own self as well. And I looked at is when I was a child, what are my greatest memories with my father? When there was actual presence and one-on-one time. My parents were like 2 ships in the night, and they drifted apart because why? Because he was the provider, she was the nurturer, and there was no real connection. And so they shifted, and I started seeing those own things happening in my own life. And I, at that point, realized I had to make a change.
So let me ask you this, Dustin. Do you think some men unconsciously, and this may have been you, but unconsciously escape into work to avoid emotional discomfort?
I think the majority of men do. One, we weren't raised in large part in an environment where we embraced our emotions, knew how to understand them, unpack them, navigate them. And I think for so many men, there's this idea of, I graduate school, I get the job, I find the girl, I have the kids, I build the business. And again, everything's these check boxes in this scorecard. And we're in this constant pursuit of more, and checking all these things off. One of the things that is a constant is that business. And the business is in large part easy to see if it's going well. How much cash is in the bank? What does our growth look like? What does our P&L look like? What's on the balance sheet? What is our close rate percentage? Like all these things we can see. Give me those same metrics in a marriage. They generally don't exist. And because as guys, we generally don't really confront and have conversations about our emotions. I remember there were things that, 10 years into my relationship with my wife, that we would start having conversations about that made me uncomfortable as fuck. Like, hey, we'd be on a walk, hey, I want to talk about our sex life. I'm like, we have sex. I don't know what there is to talk about. But I just felt, I was doing the things, so that was enough. But in business, we know that's not the case. It's not just, are you meeting the metric or the KPI? There's more. And to grow a great business, you have to have real conversations. To have a great marriage, you have to have real conversations. Otherwise, if you don't have that conversations and set a standard and hold each other accountable to that standard and talk about things when they're off, again, you start being like that metaphorical two ships passing in the night. You just exist together. You're just companions. You're just life partners. You're not actually in love. You're not actually building something real. You're just building some sort of connection, for lack of a better term. And I heard something the other day that it was from Tony Robbins, and he was talking about these 6 elements that people need in their life, and the 4th one being love and connection. And he said, and the sad thing for so many people is they experience love and then they experience heartbreak. So they don't go after love anymore. They just go after connection, because we want to be connected with people. And that's where so many marriages shift. You shift from the love and the dating and the things you did on the front end and showing up as your best self, and then it's just connection. And then you see so many fail because it's not true connection. You're not doing the same things. And then you turn into those two ships again, just passing in the night. And then we wonder why they fail. And you see all this bullshit going on right now about the divorce glow up. And we've talked about this, how much it is such a shame to give up on your marriage and your spouse and then start doubling down on being a better version of you and going to the gym and going back to church and stop drinking and all this bullshit. Why didn't you just do that in your marriage?
Could have made marriage way better. But it's so weird how we, like, it's so backwards. We wait until we get divorced. That's wild, man. So, answer this for me. What are the early warning signs that a relationship is drifting emotionally?
I think you just start to feel numb. I mean, there's no excitement about when you pull in the driveway and when you get home. The conversation is very superficial. There's a lack of connection when it comes to something as simple as, hey, how was your day? And actually looking at each other, and phones down and having a real conversation. Or you say something and you're trying to share something that is deep that you're going through, and you realize it's like you just bounced a ball off of a wall. They're not there. I mean, they're physically there. They're not mentally there and connected with you to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. What do you mean? Like, let's talk about this. And you start to notice those things. And then, you each start doing things that fill your cup because you need that, but you're not doing anything together to do that. Or when you get to a point where sex is more of just something that is checking off a box to say to whomever, maybe it just be to yourself that, oh yeah, we have sex this many times a week or a month, so our sex life is healthy. But I guarantee you, if you're honest with yourself, you remember what it was like to get physical with your partner early on versus when you're in that kind of drift space, and it's very different. And so much of how this relationship grows is the deep, true connection that you have with them. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all those things they matter immensely. And when you start to not feel that, and again, you're just like friends, I think you've got a problem in front of you.
Why do you think so many men miss those signs though? Like it seems like it would be obvious. But
I think to your point, when we're providing and we're giving so much to provide, candidly, I think we're doing it selfishly. We're doing it more for us than our family, to prove to ourselves that we can. We're not paying attention to the signs because it's so easy to see if you're doing well in business and putting all this time in and whatnot that, yeah, all the check marks say that I'm doing a good job here. And in relationships, it's not necessarily the same. And for so many of us, we give our all. I mean, think about your day. You wake up, you go to the gym, maybe. You go into the office, you work a long day, and then you get home and you're exhausted. And I used to be exhausted by just hearing, what would you like for dinner? Oh my God. I'm like, I don't want to make another fucking decision. How unfair is that to my wife and my kids for me to give all my emotional bandwidth every single day to business and then just give them my physical presence and not the best version of me that I would give clients and team members or the gym or somebody else? And then what do most of us do when we're not in work and it's the weekend? I mean, for me, for years, it was just numbing. Or, some minutes, I got to go golf with my buddies or go fishing or go whatever. And I think there's something to that, but we're not really spending time with our family trying to build them up at the same time.
So take me into your mentality or a moment like, your business is growing, things are going well. Like you said, you're checking off all the boxes, but home life is deteriorating Talk to me a little bit about you and what that was like.
It was like I was trying to escape my own home while I was there. I mean, if I could find a justification for going literally anywhere to run any errand by myself, I would do it. If I was at home, I felt anxious because, I mean, you know, in business, I can control a lot of elements of it. Kids will be acting a fool at any given moment that they want to. And I used to I used to try to like hyper control them, and everything was also a scorecard for them. You know, if you cleaned your room and you had good grades, then you could do the thing. But what I realized later on down the road was that I was also creating these little, you know, perfectionists that were going to, in so many ways, be exactly like I was for so long, which is not healthy. And then so for me, when I had all this anxiety and I couldn't control everything, and if I did, I was being a dictator in my own home. In order for me to escape that, I would either physically have to leave or I would have to drink. And then for anyone who has drank quite a bit, especially for a period of time, it may numb things, but it's an amplifier. And then heaven forbid your children or your wife say something that triggers you, and now you jump off the deep end with it, you know, and then you're living inside of this chaotic environment. And it's like, man, these are the people that are supposed to trust you and love you the most and feel the most secure around you. And they were getting the worst version of that from me. Real talk. Most marketing problems aren't marketing problems. They're business problems wearing a marketing hat. Cute, but very expensive. Maybe you're getting traffic, but it's not converting. Maybe you're converting, but your average sale is too low. Maybe things are fine, but not scaling. That's usually a system issue, not a need a new ad issue. So here's the move. Let's hop on a short call, look at your business, and see what's really holding your growth back. No pressure, no pitch, just a fit check. If we can help, we'll tell you how. If we can't, we'll tell you that too. Tap learn more and grab a time.
So in that moment where you're feeling that, what was the hardest thing for you to admit to yourself?
That I wasn't being the father that I was pretending I was. And I think even one day my wife said to me, I mean, verbatim, she said, "You're a fraud. The things that you say online and what you subscribe to be and how you actually show up are two different things." And for me, that was a very important moment because I think that I appreciate the honesty and the candor that my wife shared. I think so many men would have said, you know, screw you, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I had to sit in it and go, man, she's right. I'm not being this great husband. No, my wife has nice things. Great. She could get nice things from a complete stranger. I mean, if you've got a pretty spouse, they could, very easily just go online, put up GoFundMe's, put random gifts inside of some registry and have random dudes buy them. And she'd have those things, right? So here I was trying to justify the things and the roof over her head and all this as me being a good husband. The reality was all I was doing was being a provider. And that was it.
Can a man deeply love his family and still unintentionally neglect them?
Yes. And I think a lot of times we go through seasons of life or of business in which there is a very important high priority that shifts a lot of focus away. But I think the most important thing, and my wife and I had to do this last year, is we were moving, away from a failing business and into the idea of just doing one thing. And we understood the dollars and cents if it didn't, succeed. I remember we were in the drive-thru grabbing some food for our kids. And, and she literally was just like, what do you need from me? And I'm like, if you could just make the kids dinner twice a week, I'll handle things the rest of the time. Focus on X, Y, and Z. I've got this. Just understand that I'm going to be busy and things are going to look a little different for a period of time, but only for a period of time. And I think you need to define relatively what that looks like. Because again, if you don't set expectations on the front end in your mind, you might be thinking 12, 14, 16-hour days. And in her head, she's thinking 10. She also might think Monday through Friday. And you're thinking, no, I might even need the Lord's Day to get this stuff done. So I think it's just very important to have those conversations.
And we've talked a lot about the marriage, but we've only touched a little bit on what happens to children when dad's physically present but emotionally absent for years. What does that really do to the kids?
They have to become very self-reliant, and they also seek external gratification from other people, which is tough. I saw a video recently that really weighed heavy on my heart. It was more of a reenactment than real life, I believe, but it was showing an alcoholic father that that was passed out on the couch, beer cans and stuff around him. His son was probably 5 years old, went to wake him up and said, "Daddy, I want to go to the park." And so the dad, begrudgingly kind of gets up, goes and takes a shot, goes and brushes his teeth. They go to the park. You can tell he's exhausted. He's there with his kid, but he's not there, building memories, having a great time. They get home. The kid says, "Daddy, I'm hungry." And he says, "Hey, just, put something in the microwave real quick." Dad goes to his room, pounds a couple of beers and passes out. The kid gets his food out of the microwave. He starts to eat. He goes to check on his dad. He sees dad's asleep. He goes and gets his tablet. He goes to his room, pulls the covers over his head. And I just, for a moment, I was like, what a sad life for that young man. And then I went back to my life as a young boy. And, when my family separated and my dad was significantly older than my mother, and he was an alcoholic, and, layer that into being a 70-something-year-old man, he wasn't super present. And so I started thinking, what did my life look like? And I'm like, I literally built my own sense of safety for myself as a young man by, instead of being upstairs, I wanted to be down in the basement, and I, decorated my room and did all the things. And he probably thought, and I thought in the moment I was just doing something that was cool for me. No, I was building a little sanctuary that gave myself connection, presence, significance with my friends and all these things. I wanted everyone else to tell me, "Man, you're so cool. This is so awesome," because I didn't get that at home. The only thing I ever got at home was a constant reminder that if my grades weren't at a certain level, my batting average wasn't at a certain level, my chores weren't done at a certain level, then I needed to do more. And although I would say, again, it created some perfectionism in my life, you're just on this constant pursuit of what is the next most important thing. And I didn't want that for my own kids. Yes, I want them to do well in life and be great humans and love their parents. But I realize there is much more to it than just giving them marching orders all the time and what the expectation is, because then all of a sudden love feels transactional.
Yeah. It becomes more transactional than relational. And it seems like there's a moment where the man of the house is feeling like he's doing all the right things, he's providing, and then something happens and he realizes it's not what he thought it was. And then that tension comes into the home. How does that affect leadership at work?
I think so many can say, leave home at home. Mm-hmm. Before you walk in the door. But I can tell you, one of the biggest fights my wife and I ever had, I was still the first one into the office that day, and I was trying to get grounded and focused. And I'll never forget just sitting there thinking, no matter how hard I try today, I'm not actually here. I need to work through this. And I shut my laptop, put everything away. I left. I passed a team member who was generally the second one into the office, and they're like, "Hey, where are you going? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'll be fine. I will not be in today." Because the reality is, unless you're a freaking psychopath and you're so good at compartmentalizing things, which I don't believe is healthy in any capacity, you're not going to be great.
Yeah. So if a man is listening right now and realizes, I think I've been neglecting my relationship or relationships at home, what should he do first?
I think first and foremost, you just have to, literally have a conversation with yourself. And am I giving her or my children what they really need? And more often than not to the degree that we can. And then I think it's super important to go have an honest conversation with your spouse and say, "Hey, I've been trying to stack bricks for the longest time to build this metaphorical castle for us and a moat around it to create safety and all these things. I also noticed that we've been kind of drifting, and that's on me. And I would love, because I don't think you can go from 0 to 100. I think that's a terrible idea. But I would love, based off of where we're at, for us to start prioritizing one date night a month. I saw something the other day. It was, date night every 7 days, one night out by ourselves, like out at a hotel or something every 7 weeks, and then one vacation by ourselves every 7 months. And I was like, this is great. But I think you have to have those conversations. And I think you also, as a man, depending on your nature, because her reaction is generally going to be a reflection of who you normally have been. If you having this honest conversation isn't normal in your relationship, don't expect for her to be super honest right out the gate. Because if you're generally reactionary or defensive, even though you're giving her permission, she may not be fully there yet. So I think you have to open up a dialogue. I mean, even a good friend of mine who's on here pretty frequently, him and his wife go out every 3 months and they literally have a report card and they go over it with each other. And the whole reality of the conversation is you're going to listen to them 100% all the way through, pass no judgment, not get defensive, any of those things. And that's it, because it's their interpretation of how you're showing up, not your own. And that's something you have to be super mindful of in your family, as a husband, as a father, and in your business as well.
All right, brother. So it's time for rapid fire. You got to give me the first thing that comes to mind. You ready?
Yeah.
What destroys marriages faster, conflict or neglect?
Neglect.
One sign that a man has become emotionally absent.
When he's disconnected to what's going on at home.
One habit ambitious men should stop immediately.
Drinking.
What matters more long term, success or presence?
Presence.
One thing every husband or father listening should do this week.
Go spend some one-on-one time with your wife and each of your kids individually.
So guys, businesses can recover from hard seasons. Some relationships can't recover from years of emotional absence, though. And I think one of the loneliest outcomes in life is achieving everything you wanted professionally while realizing you lost connection with the people that you built it for. Ambition is powerful, but unchecked ambition can quietly consume everything around it, including the house. So spend some time with your loved ones today, have some tough conversations, and this is Life by the Horns. We'll see you next time.